Today, I am going to go over which sewing products you do not need to buy to de-influence you. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today's video is all about items that you do not need to buy for sewing. Again, these are all just my opinions, but let's get started. So first is a turning tool. So the idea behind this tool is it helps you to turn right side out. So as an example, this would be like straps for a dress. It has this little hook on the end, and then there is a latch that would go over your fabric to hold it in place while you turn it right side out. Now, this does work, but why buy a whole other tool when you could just use a safety pin? So a safety pin will kind of do the exact same thing. There are multiple sizes of safety pins, and let's see how that works. So as you can see here, I have two different pieces of fabric that I need to turn right side out. So for one, I am going to be using a safety pin, and the other we will be using the turning tool. So for the safety pin, we just latch it on and then secure it in place. And then I'm just going to push the safety pin into the fabric. And then I will just continue working the fabric so that I can turn this right side out. So it does take some time, but this is very similar to the effect that you would get with the turning tool. And instead of having to buy a whole separate tool, you could just use a safety pin. So as we go through, you see that this does start to turn right side out, and you are able to get it nice and ready to go. So now if I do the other piece, I'm going to use my turning tool, so I have that latch facing down, and then I'm going to put this all the way through my fabric, and then I'm going to hook it on to that little hook at the top, and then put the latch up, and then work it with my fingers to get it started. So you do have to kind of do that to begin the process of using the turning tool, but then it does, very similar to the other one, turn the item right side out. So the big question here is, do you want to invest your money in getting a whole other tool when you could probably just use a safety pin? It's kind of up to you, but in my opinion, I would say no. So the next item I'm going to talk to you about is a disappearing ink pen. So these are normally for marking your garments, so especially if you need to put where a dot is or where you needed to put in a button or maybe a pocket, you could use this for that. Now I bought one of these because I was so excited about it. I thought it'd be a lot neater than chalk, and it just doesn't come out that bright. So as you can see here, I just drew a little smiley face on my fabric. So you can see it, it's not the brightest though. And then the idea is that you can use water or air, and the ink will then be invisible and will be removed from your fabric. So as you can see here, I just use a little bit of water and it does really go away. It's very, very faded. And that's sort of my problem with this, is that it fades so quickly that by the time you actually get to sewing with it, you can't see the markings. And maybe that's just a bad pen that I got, but I would highly recommend, instead of wasting your money on that, to get tailor's chalk. So tailor's chalk is going to show up really nicely on your fabric. It comes in a bunch of different colors. So for example, if I use the yellow for this, it's going to be really bright and really stand out. And then you can either wash the item or you can kind of brush it away and the tailor's chalk will come off. Now the next item we'll talk about are these little clippers. So I got these. I do like having them, especially for cutting little threads near my sewing machine, but especially if you're a beginner, just stick with scissors. You don't need to buy an additional pair of clippers to have on hand. It's just going to be more items that you'll need to keep track of. Scissors will do the exact same thing for you, plus you'll be able to actually cut out fabric with it too. Now we'll get into rulers, which this is much more related to quilting, I think, just because in quilting, if you go to the quilting section of Joann Fabrics, you'll see there's a bunch of different size rulers there. Now, if you were just starting off with quilting, I easily think you could probably get away with just having one or two of these. For example, I have one that's actually a ruler, and then I have some small ones, and then I have two sort of bigger ones, but the one that I use the most often is this big ruler. So it is about 25 inches by 6 inches. That is my go-to ruler that I am just constantly bringing out. And then I use a smaller ruler, so it's this tiny little square. I find it to be very helpful too. Now these other two sizes, I don't really use them that often. You know, if you need a ruler, you could definitely already have a ruler on hand. But I would say if you're just getting started, maybe have a large one and a small one. That way you're not having to keep track of everything. Be sure to look though, sometimes they are specific for left-handed versus right-handed. Now the next item that I am going to talk to you about today is thread. So if you go on Amazon, if you look at quilting supplies, sewing supplies, you're going to see that they're going to try to get you to purchase these large quantities of thread. I fell for it. I have not used them. So these threads ended up not being the greatest quality. You can see a good amount of them I haven't even used yet. They still have the tape on them. And all they do is they live in this basket now. They live in the closet. I do try to take them out, but If you are just getting started, really just stick to the neutral thread colors. If you are making something specific, get the thread for that, but you don't really need to invest in a bunch of colors. So again, all of these were just my opinions. If there's something on here that you really want to buy and that you are looking forward to getting, then obviously get that to help build out your sewing collection. But a lot of the times there's so many things when you go into the fabric store you don't really need, especially since they are more of just extras and fun to have. Do you use any of these items and you feel very strongly that you should have them? Let me know in the comments, as I would love to hear about that. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.